Everyone in NASCAR knows that Shane van Gisbergen is almost unbeatable on road courses. He's won 6 of the last 7. He dominated Watkins Glen by over 7 seconds. He's turned road course race day into something close to a formality. But here's what almost nobody is explaining properly. Why? Not the vague, "he's just really good" answer, and not the "he came from Supercars" line everyone repeats without going deeper. The actual, specific technical reason that SVG does something with a race car in a braking zone that the entire rest of the Cup field literally cannot copy. Because Dale Earnhardt Jr. figured it out. And when he explained it on his podcast, he ended with the most brutal sentence in recent NASCAR analysis. He said there is not a single driver currently racing in the Cup Series who could adopt this technique and do it well. Not one. And the most fascinating part? SVG himself heard the analysis, shrugged, and said, "People are overthinking it." He then said something that reveals exactly why nobody is catching him. So today we're going to break down the specific technical secret, why it's almost impossible to learn as an adult racing driver, what SVG and Harvick and Zilish have all said about it, and what it means heading into Sonoma, the next road course, where SVG is the defending winner. Stay with me, because this gets genuinely fascinating. Welcome back to Freedom Line News, the channel where we don't just chase the drama, we actually break down what really happened. If you're new, take a quick second to hit subscribe. This community is growing every week. All right, let's get into it. To understand what SVG is doing differently, you first have to understand what everyone else in the Cup field does when they hit a braking zone on a road course, because that contrast is where the secret lies. When a typical NASCAR Cup driver attacks a heavy braking zone, the kind of hard, late-braking corner you get at Watkins Glen or Sonoma, they follow a pattern that was essentially trained into them on ovals from day one of their careers. They stand on the brakes hard. As they slow down, they downshift through the gears, using engine braking to help scrub off speed. And here's the key. Every time that transmission drops into a lower gear, the drivetrain suddenly grabs the rear wheels and drags them down. That abrupt rear load spike is what causes the rear tires to hop and bounce through the corner. The back of the car gets unsettled. The driver fights it. They manage the instability as an accepted part of road course life. Most of them have never known anything different. It's muscle memory baked in from years of oval racing, where the technique simply doesn't exist in the same way. And it costs them. Not hugely on every single lap, but over a long race, every corner, that instability is friction. It's tire wear. It's lost time. It adds up. So what does SVG do instead? This is what Dale Earnhardt Jr. broke down, and it's specific enough to actually understand. SVG uses the clutch pedal in braking zones almost like a precision instrument. Rather than allowing the drivetrain to slam the rear wheels every time he downshifts, he modulates the clutch to control exactly how that power is transferred to the rear axle. He releases it gradually in a way that helps the car pitch and rotate into the corner smoothly, without the harsh rear tire load spike that upsets everybody else's car. The result is that the rear of SVG's car stays composed and settled through the braking zone. He can carry more speed into corners. He can rotate the car more aggressively and more predictably, and his tires are being treated more gently in the process, which means they last longer, which means he can push harder later in the stint when everyone else is managing degraded rubber. Dale Jr. put it plainly. SVG can rotate the car deeper into corners without upsetting the rear tires. And then he delivered the line that should terrify every other team in the garage. He said, "This is a technique you need to be doing from the day you start driving race cars. There is no chance." His words were significantly more colorful than that. There is no way any current Cup driver could adopt this and execute it well in a race. It's not something you watch on video and go practice for a month. It's 20+ years of muscle memory. It lives in SVG's hands and feet at a subconscious level, built over thousands of laps in Australian V8 Supercars, where this exact technique was essentially mandatory to make those cars turn. And here's the evidence that Dale Jr. is right, because other drivers have actually tried to copy it, and the results tell the story clearly. Joey Logano, one of the most experienced and technically sophisticated drivers in the Cup field, began the Watkins Glen weekend specifically trying to use right-foot braking, a related technique from Supercars that SVG also uses. He tried it in practice, and he bailed out before the race even started. Couldn't make it work under pressure. Austin Cindric went even further. He actually competed in a Supercars wildcard race in Australia last year, in part specifically to practice these techniques in their natural environment. His team confirmed he was working on the method. He's still not catching SVG on road courses. That's what you're dealing with. Professional racing drivers in their athletic prime, with full team support and deliberate practice, are trying to learn this, and they're not getting there. Now here's the angle that makes this story even more fascinating. Because SVG knows all of this is out there, Dale Jr. brought the analysis directly to him on the podcast, and SVG's response was masterful. He basically shrugged it off. He said people overthink it. He said it's just all he's ever known. He learned it in Supercars because the lock differential on those cars required you to run a lot of rear brake to make the car turn, and the clutch was just part of how you controlled the rear in the braking zone. He said in the NASCAR next-gen car, with its open differential, he doesn't even strictly need to do it the same way anymore. And then Kevin Harvick pointed out something that puts the whole thing in a different light. Harvick said SVG has a great poker face. He said SVG is genuinely helpful to other drivers in the garage. He'll share information, talk through things. But Harvick doesn't think SVG is showing anybody everything he has, because nobody else can do it anyway. Why give away the full playbook when your opponents can read every page and still can't execute it? And here's the most revealing quote in the whole story. It didn't come from a legend or an analyst. It came from SVG's own teammate, Connor Zilisch, who is considered one of the most talented young road course racers in the sport. Zilisch chased SVG around Watkins Glen for most of the day and studied him lap after lap, and what he noticed wasn't some dramatic move or aggressive overtake. It was something much quieter and more unsettling. He said you never see SVG slipping his tires. Out of corners where every other driver is already flat to the floor, SVG isn't even at full throttle yet. He's managing, conserving. And then later in the stint, when everyone else is sliding around on worn tires, SVG just picks up the pace. Zilisch said it might not even be intentional. It's just that SVG saves his equipment so naturally that he's able to maintain the lead while everyone else is overworking their car. That's what you cannot copy. It's not a single technique you can study. It's 20 years of feeling in a racing car. So where does this leave us heading into Sonoma this weekend? Because the timing of this story matters. SVG goes to Sonoma as the defending winner, and just 5 points outside the playoff cut line after a San Diego crash that wasn't his fault. He's motivated, he's dangerous, and Sonoma's long technical layout is exactly where his clutch work and tire management punish anyone who pushes too early. Do you think any Cup driver can ever truly copy his technique? Or is Dale Jr. right that it's impossible to learn? Drop a comment, hit like, and subscribe to Freedom Line News. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.